Chapter 12 Echoes of the Past. Jack had been reading the journal but had promptly passed out. He remembered the nightmare he had just lived through and how they had never found his wife's killer. The cops blamed it on a bear attack, however, Jack knew that wasn't the case. "Hey Jack, it's almost 11 p.m. The chief's voice awoke Jack from his slumber. "Oh hey Chief, was just reading this journal and I guess I passed out." "Fascinating stuff though," Jack said with a slight yawn. The chief cracked a smile. "All good, Jack. Maybe you should head on home for the night though." "Yeah, I think that's for the best." On the ride home, Jack pondered what he had read in the journal. Thoughts of Civil War soldiers dashed through his head. The sounds of cannon fire replaced the cars around him, and the rain outside became the shouts of soldiers. "Charge!" they said as they stormed onto the battlefield. Jack imagined himself on the battlefield as a 5-star general with a cavalry saber in hand. He would lead a charge against hundreds of Confederate troops. Bullets would whiz past his head, impacting the ground around him while dirt and dust was thrown into his face. Charging through the sandstorm, he would pull his saber back to swing. But just then, the honk of a car horn woke Jack from his trance. "Get it together, Jack," he thought to himself. "I'll have to keep reading the journal, though. It's got to connect to this case somehow." The traffic in Farpoint was unusually busy that night. Jack had found himself stuck in the late Friday night rush. "Man, I'm never getting home at this rate," Jack breathed out. "Well, it might be a good time to do some more reading." Jack promptly opened the journal to where he thought he had left off. November 30th, 1864. Over the past few weeks, I've slowly made my way up from Georgia. I've now made my way to what I believe is West Virginia. The new state is beautiful. There are hills and mountains as far as the eye can see. Truly a wonderful place to behold. And most of all, far away from any Union soldiers. Near the town of Point Pleasant, I found an abandoned cabin. I hope to make it my own for as long as I can. I haven't had a place to call my own in far too long. The locals here are very strange. I tried talking to one earlier, but he just glared at me before turning the opposite direction. I wonder if it's my Georgian accent, or if these people are just superstitious when it comes to outsiders. December 15th, 1864. Haven't made an entry in quite some time. I've been quite busy working on my new home. It's coming along great, I think. I built a new door as the old one had been kicked open and torn from its hinges. I took the boards from all the windows. The glass in several of them are smashed. However, that can always be fixed. Next on the list is getting the stove repaired. It snowed for the first time yesterday. I've never seen such a beautiful thing. Cold as hell, though. The snow had begun piling on the roof and icicles hang from above the doorway. I worry that one will impale me one of these days. I suppose one could get used to this life, though. It's amazing what the lack of bullets flying through the air can do for one's mind. I should probably retire for the night. Next on the list is getting firewood. It runs out faster than one can blink. January 1st, 1865. What was that thing? At first I thought it to be an eagle. However, it was the size of a man. The face of the creature was obscured by a black shroud. Those eyes, like the fires of hell. They stared into the depths of my soul with a dark crimson red that echoed with the fury of 1,000 suns. Its wings were so big it blocked out the moon's faint shadow. They seemed almost insect-like in appearance. What a strange creature. I've never been so terrified in my life, and I feel that I was lucky to escape unharmed. It all started when I went out for firewood. The stove was running on embers, and I was desperate for its warmth. So I headed out into the abyss of snow that surrounded my cabin. The cold tore at my face, and the wind howled around me like a tornado. Axe and lantern in hand, however, I trudged on, leaving deep impressions in the snow behind me. I eventually came into a clearing in the forest. After finding a suitable tree that had been knocked down, I began to go to work. However, as I neared the completion of my task, I caught the glimpse of a shadow in the corner of my eye. "What was that?" I asked as I quickly turned around. A wave of panic came over me, and I dropped my axe from fear. All I could do was stare into those eyes. dark, so dark. A few seconds went by, each one felt like hours of time passing. Suddenly the creature spread its wings. It lunged towards me, its eyes locked for mine. I turned and ran as fast as I possibly could. It was no use, however. The creature grabbed me with its claws. As it lifted me into the air, I caught a glimpse of its face. Though the body was humanoid in shape, its face resembled an insect. A moth, to be exact. I heard a loud explosion out of nowhere and fell from the sky. Waking up several hours later, I saw a man standing above the strange creature's corpse. Turning around at the sound of movement, he spoke. "Greetings, Thomas. My name is Gideon. I have spent many months searching for you." Rightly confused, I responded cautiously. What do you mean searching for me? What could I possibly have to offer?" He laughed loudly at the comment. "Have you not realized yet? You can see into other worlds, possibly even travel to them. You most likely summoned this creature. Otherworldly creatures are drawn to beings like you and me." I probably asked more questions than I should have. What is that creature anyways? It was terrifying. The locals call it the Mothman. The creature has been a sort of local legend. At least it was until I killed it. This spot holds a portal where the space between both worlds is weak. You unknowingly opened the portal for it. "A few months ago you were but a mere mortal," he began, "enslaved to the passage of time. Earth is being invaded by numerous species. My people and I do our best to protect the universe, but we're spread too thin." "Are you saying I'm no longer human?" Gideon laughed at that statement too. "You are certainly still human. Just evolved to the next stage. You've only scratched your potential. You can still be killed though, so be cautious. That is one limitation of the human body. However, you are now free from the shackles of time. All that I ask is that you take up the task of defending this earth. There are other world walkers among you, yet to be found. It is up to you to find them." At this point I wasn't sure if he was making this all up. "Who are you anyways?" I asked. "Call me the Creator. I am the beginning and the end. That is all." And with that he disappeared into the night and left me with more questions than answers. What's a guy to do to get some peace and quiet for once? Chapter 13. Endgame. The sound of an approaching car horn woke Jack from his trance. After nearly half an hour, the line of cars was finally moving again. "Alright, time to get off this darned road," Jack spoke to himself. "It's time to take the fight to this creature before anyone else gets killed." Taking a right at the fork, Jack made his way towards the Etowah Forest. A flare gun and blowtorch sat on the seat next to him, alongside his revolver for good measure. "Time to put an end to this madness," he thought to himself as he arrived at the forest entrance. A wave of deja vu came over him, and he thought about how much he hated this exact forest. Eventually, the entrance to the mine came into view. It looked like the mouth of hell in the night. Jack approached cautiously. As he entered the mine, a loud screech emanated deep from within. "Good. So it's home at least," he said to himself. Keeping the flashlight off to avoid alerting the creature made it hard for him to see in the dark. However, he used the tracks on the mine's floor as his guide through the abyss. While they hadn't been used in many years, at least they could be of some use. This time, however, the mine looked different. Jack couldn't put his finger on it, but the layout was all wrong. He continued forward. Putting his finger out to the wall before him, he pulled it back with a sudden shock. The walls were shifting before him, as if the mine itself was alive. A deep bellowing voice echoed throughout the mine. "Ah, Jackie boy, we've been waiting. Oh, how long we've waited. Come a little closer, why don't you?" Usually Jack would have reached for his revolver. However, this time he held the flare gun firmly in his grasp. His foot suddenly caught a track in the floor and he tumbled down uncontrollably. As he scrambled to find the flare gun, a noise in the distance shook him. A loud scraping noise suddenly flooded the mine. It sounded like nails being scraped against a chalkboard. So hungry, Jack," the creature lulled slowly from the darkness. "It's been so long since I had a good meal. I wonder if humans really do taste like chicken. Just as its shadow came into view, Jack found the flare gun. He picked it up in a hurry and promptly fired in the creature's direction. Although it missed, it succeeded in stunning the creature. Jack popped in another flare into the gun as quick as his trembling hands would allow. The creature roared loudly with rage and lunged at him. A claw caught Jack in the shoulder. He let out a yell as a fierce rush of pain came over him. Still, he was able to collect himself and fired once more. The flare caught the creature right in the face. Its leathery skin promptly caught on fire and it staggered backwards. Loud screams of pain could be heard as the creature ran in the opposite direction. Flames ignited the mine's dark interior. Jack pursued with a fierce determination. "Now I got you," he said with confidence. He fired once more and managed to strike the creature a second time. As the fire took a toll, the skin of the creature began to melt away. Soon it knelt on its knees in defeat. "There's more where I came from, Jack. There's a whole army of us. Just you wait." Jack opened fire with his revolver until the creature finally fell over. A wave of relief came over him as he realized the creature was dead. "Thank God," he breathed out. "Now I can put this whole mess behind me." Shining his flashlight on a now deceased creature, the light revealed nothing but a smoldering skeleton. A sharp pain in his left shoulder immediately caught Jack's attention. He had forgotten about his injury. Adrenaline tended to have that effect. After clutching his shoulder, Jack turned around and made his way out of the mine. The walls of the mine had stopped moving and stood eerily still. Jack's flashlight caught a puddle, temporarily blinding him. Despite this, the mine was no easier to navigate. A voice in the distance caught Jack off guard. "Well done, Jack. We think you're finally ready." "Ready for what exactly?" Jack responded. A tall, thin man in a black suit appeared out of the murky darkness. "The name's Axel. I'm part of an organization known as the Order of the Ancients. There's not many of us left these days. The fact that I'm here means that you're special. I bet you can guess what I'm talking about." Jack knew exactly what he meant, unfortunately. There was a brief pause as the man carefully pondered his next words. "You've seen other worlds, right, Jack?" "Yes, I have, and lots of strange creatures, too." Axel cracked a slight grin. "You've only scraped the surface of your potential, however. You can not only view these worlds, but you can travel to them. You are a world walker." Jack let those words sink in for a second. "A world walker, huh?" "You did a great job handling the Wendigo." Axel acknowledged the battle with the creature. "But there are many more monsters out there. The space between Earth and other worlds is becoming increasingly thin." "That's great and all," Jack began, "but what does that have to do with me?" "There are only a few world walkers left in existence. In fact, you are the only one left on planet Earth. We need you to focus on Earth so that we can focus on more pressing matters." "I see," said Jack. "Where do you want me to go?" "A mysterious race of creatures are terrorizing the deserts of Arizona. Humans call them skinwalkers. Jack, I need you to go and investigate this problem and report back to me. Do you think you can handle that?" "I think I can," Jack agreed. "Then make for Arizona tomorrow morning. I will be observing you along the way. Once your task is complete, I will find you. The Order of Ancients fell once before, but you have the chance to rebuild it." And with that, the man disappeared back into the shadows. His shadowing outline faded into nothingness. Jack wanted nothing more than just a few minutes to relax. However, he knew deep down that people needed his help, and he was never one to sit still for long. Finally, putting the entrance to the mine behind him, he began to prepare to leave Farpoint behind. He hadn't left town in years. Right now seems like a pretty good time, though. First, he had to stop at the police station. Chapter 14. Time Immemorial. July 18th, 1880. I sat at a large circular table in the center of the council chamber. Several years had passed since my encounter with the Creator. I still had no idea who he was. Was he God himself? Since then, life had been eventful to say the least. At Gideon's behest, I rounded up as many world walkers as I could. We became the Order of Ancients, tasked with stopping threats from other worlds. We certainly had our hands full. The hall was filled with dozens of people, all dedicated to protecting Earth. Almost poetic in some strange sort of way. The Order's ranks were made up of all sorts of people. Veterans of the Civil War, mercenaries from foreign lands, and even an ex-member of the Queen's Guard. The Order contained people from all walks of life. Apparently, the other members had gone through similar experiences. It would seem that one cannot gain power without suffering through some sort of hardship. One guy was a sailor before the Order. He got swept out to sea and nearly drowned. It would seem that he had some sort of vision at the bottom of the sea. Whatever it was, it gave him the ability to see into other dimensions. Not unlike me, I guess. Today's meeting was a little dry. Thunderbirds were spotted in New York. Werewolves seemed to be running around London. Nothing seems to surprise me these days. Except that vampire in Romania. She was quite the looker. Never did I think that monster hunting would get boring. But with the veil between worlds continuing to fade, things should get interesting soon enough. July 19th, 1890. It seems we got a mission after all. Little old town in the middle of nowhere has a monster problem. Goes by the name of Farpoint, apparently. It's all the way up in Maine, so the journey's going to be a long one. Apparently, it's a lot colder than Georgia was. Can't wait to get hypothermia. At least we have a contract now, so we can actually get paid. Corporal Jackson has remained my most loyal ally, having fought side by side against the Union. He's been chomping at the bit to get into some action, and I can't really blame him. Alongside him is Takamura, the so-called samurai. He comes from a strange faraway island known as Japan. Though the curved blade he carries is certainly impressive, I just don't trust him for some reason. Then there's Arnold the sailor. He first served in the Royal Navy before becoming a member of the Queen's Guard. A very prestigious honor, I'm told, though he's not a very chatty fellow. Finally, we have Anthony Smith, the African. I wasn't too keen on his appointment, but it was born out of necessity. The 5 of us make up the Order of Ancients. According to Jackson, it sounds like a Wendigo is lurking around the town. Taking one out on its own isn't too bad. We face far worse after all. Note to self, don't ever mention a Kraken near Arnold. He'll go on forever about his sailor days. Chapter 15, Departure. Finally, Jack had reached the final chapter of the journal. With this, he set the book back down on the table. It made a resounding thud. Nothing after that. Guess we know how that story ended. Jack got up from the table. He had bigger things on his mind. Despite his disapproval, Chief Horowitz wasn't surprised at all. He expected this moment would come sooner or later. "Are you sure about this, Jack?" Chief Horowitz questioned. "Everyone retires sooner or later, but you're not going to be an easy man to replace." Jack pondered the thought for a second. However, his trip to Arizona would be much easier without his job in the way. "Yeah, Chief, I think it's time," Jack sighed. "I've spent my whole life in this town, seen the same sights, the same people. It's time to see what the world has to offer, before it's too late." The Chief understood his sentiment. He too was thinking about retirement. After all, the job could be pretty thankless, and that got to the heads of even the best detectives eventually. "Well, it's been an honor working with you, Jack. You're welcome back at the station any time. Feel free to take your time cleaning out your desk." Jack cracked a smile. "Will do, Chief. Wish you the best." Jack made his way back out into the police station. As he entered the heart of the station, much of the force sat around his desk. Ray was the first to speak. A box of strawberry frosted donuts sat in his arms, an obvious bribe attempt. "Jeez, you really finished, Jack?" Ray gawked. "Yep, Ray, it's time to move on. It was great working with all of you, though." "Same to you, Jack. You're welcome back anytime. Be sure to stop sometime." The rest of the others had similar sentiments to share. The next half hour after that was spent collecting Jack's personal belongings. Each object sent a flood of memories his way. After his desk was clear, Jack exited the station for what would be the very last time. Though it was only 6 p.m., winter had robbed the sun of its light. The cold winter air stabbed at Jack's face like needles. He turned back to look at the police station one last time. This was all he had ever known. You know what they say, though. All good things must come to an end. After reaching his car, Jack put it in a gear and began to drive away. Jack slowly drove throughout the town as memories of nostalgia flooded his mind. He drove past the movie theater where he kissed his very first crush. Her name was Cindy, and she was the cutest girl in 8th grade. He could still see the light of the old lighthouse on the coast at night. Feelings of regret filled his mind, but he knew that it was time to move on. A sign came into view alongside the road. Now leaving Farpoint, Maine. Population 10,000. Finally, a new chapter had begun in Jack's life. The downside of such a remote town was the relative lack of transportation options. To make it to Arizona, Jack knew he had to catch a flight. However, the nearest airport was in Portsmouth, Maine, nearly 3 hours away at best. As the drive continued, Etowah Forest spread out alongside the right of the car. Glancing over, he swore he caught the sight of a face hidden amongst the trees. Probably just my mind playing tricks on me, he attempted to reason with himself. The next hour passed uneventfully. He listened to the rock station for a while. However, it began to crackle as he drifted out of range. He switched to a talk show soon after for background noise. All of a sudden, the volume on the radio blasted Jack's ears. As he frantically reached for the volume knob, the channel began to change uncontrollably. With no clue as to what was happening, Jack tried to shut the radio off, but it only grew louder as an object of something appeared on the horizon. As he drove closer to it, he realized that it was an overturned prison bus. The bus had lost control and flipped over in the middle of the night. Mutilated bodies wearing yellow prison jumpsuits were spread out on the bus's torn remains. Jack almost vomited at the sight of the bodies. It just never ends, does it? He thought to himself. Jack inspected one of the bodies. The jumpsuit said Portsmouth Penitentiary in bold black font. The person had been absolutely torn to shreds, much like the Wendigo attacks. His legs had been reduced to bloody stubs, and his left arm also made quite the appetizer. Written on blood across the front of the bus were the words, "Welcome to the Fun House, Jack." Unbelievable, there must have been more of them like the creature had said. It was clear to Jack that the creatures were following his every move. He would have to be extremely careful moving forward. It seemed that they were better organized than he had previously thought, too. Jack made the call with a slight sigh. He still had the radio in his car in case he needed assistance. The rest of the drive had thankfully proven uneventful. After some time, the city of Portsmouth came into view. It was a fairly large city sitting right on the Atlantic coast, a significant change of scenery from the isolated town of Farpoint. Jack drove past the sign on his right. Portsmouth, Maine, the trophy of the coast. "Huh," Jack thought. "The only trophy this place is getting is for air pollution." It was a busy day at the airport. Large crowds of people coming and going. Jack made his way in making sure he had his passport and license intact. He purchased an airplane ticket at a much higher cost than he wanted to admit. All that was left to do was to board the plane. The sight of Axel, the mysterious man from earlier, surprised him. "Hey, Jack. I wanted to catch you before you left," Axel said as he approached Jack. "Take this device in order to contact me. It's called a cell phone. It's a telephone that you can use anywhere. Your planet has yet to invent them, unfortunately. You find anything out, you call me on this. Sound good?" "Yeah, sounds good," said Jack. "But who the heck are you guys anyways?" "Honestly, Jack, the less you know, the better right now." "Of course he would say that," Jack mumbled. Taking the mysterious device from Axel, he boarded the plane. Jack had never flown before and was understandably a little nervous. The fact that he was surrounded by people didn't help much either. However, after surviving the initial turbulence, his nerves calmed down. There wasn't much on the menu, but Jack was able to order some waffles at least. In reality, the waffles were half burnt, and the syrup was terrible, but what do you expect with airplane food? The airplane attendant could be seen arguing with somebody by the door. Jack couldn't make out the conversation. Best of all, the man next to him now snored loudly. Jack put his earplugs in and soon drifted asleep. Though Jack's story was far from over, the town of Farpoint could sleep peacefully once more. Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you like the book. My next novel is going to take place in a totally different setting, but will connect to this book. But after that, I totally plan on making a sequel. So, any feedback you have, let me know. Until next time, catch you guys later.